assume the intention with the essence, discard the discarding itself. Then the boundlessness will be there. This is the diligence within the great compassion in the reminders. It benefits for the surroundings. This reminder is the great compassion towards ending and helping through ending. Constantly use this kind of reminder. It needs to proceed. It needs to be assumed up. This will benefit internally and externally as a whole, simultaneously. The unwinding will happen altogether. This is the complete reminder within itself. Everything is discarding on its own, no grasping on its own. Everything. This is the reminder that completes the benefits for all, oneself and samsara as a whole. Everything is discarding on its own. Without this reminder, everyone will be by one's own karmic habits and samsara's karmic habits, which is being specific on certain extents, always being limited. Even emptiness is limited only there, let alone other things. Even projecting on emptiness, it's stuck right there. This is a kind of karmic habit. Therefore, with everything discarding on its own, no grasping on its own, giving up on its own, everything has no limits. Any sentence can be used as a reminder. Diligently use it, which is diligently blessing. This is not for the sake of Nibbana, not at all. This is the great compassion, diligently purifying samsara, diligently blessing altogether. We must assume the reminder. To be quiet, being still, is not proceeding to anywhere. It's like being projected, and it's stuck right there. This is like a recitation that is purifying itself. It's not doing it for the sake of itself, because otherwise it's going to be the result of samudaya, being specific, being limited, on and on, being limited. The emptiness is not emptiness. It cannot be limited only there. There is no significance only right there. The emptiness has no limits. It's boundless. Therefore, it cannot be limited only with emptiness, because emptiness is not emptiness itself. When there is no such word, there is no such terminology. This is just assumed terminology. Just like we talk about the non-existence. Therefore, it's just talking about it towards that which is not existing. But within itself, it doesn't exist, even terminologies. Emptiness is not emptiness itself. What the Tithi projecting on it. It is by opinions and meanings. Therefore, we need to use Tithi that purifies itself. For example, discarding must be on its own. Therefore, it will be the Tithi that purifies itself. The opinions and meanings that purifies itself. Without purifying itself, it will become desire, delusion, delusive attachment that join in together, and it's the samudaya, the cause of suffering. Terminologies or projection must purify themselves, otherwise they will become samsara in themselves. They will be blocked right there. Use terminologies that purify themselves. Everything is letting go on its own. Everything is discarding on its own. Everything is no grasping on its own. Everything proceeds simultaneously with everything. Use it for blessing. Then there will be purification for the grasping mind, concludes towards ending for samsara. It will purify one's own grasping mind as well. Liberation for the sake of itself, emptiness for the sake of itself, detachment for the sake of itself. This is the grasping mind. This is the karmic habit. This will be purified, purifying the grasping mind. This is the essence that is concluded. Everything is to be used for blessing. The reminder that is used each time, it means that there is great compassion for samsara. Everything is discarding on its own. For everything is meant for everything. No grasping on its own is meant for everything. In this way is the great compassion that is proceeding simultaneously. There will be simultaneous purification for all as well. For the boundlessness, it does purify everything automatically, which is samsara. Therefore, when there is a specificity, we must use the word everything, includes everything. Letting go is on its own with everything. This will purify being specific within stillness, extinction, ending. All this specificity will be purified. This is the karmic habits or the projection, which is the linking of karma. This is like projection that purifies itself, terminologies that purifies themselves. With everything must be used for the blessing, then it will not be blocked within oneself. All the projection must be purified and used within itself, purified within itself, used for the blessing. This engagement has no limits. Non-attachment has no limits. The non-attachment discards itself. It doesn't grasp itself. That is used with everything. With everything. This will turn into the great compassion towards all and everything. That which is boundless child. Everything is meant without limits, boundless. The boundlessness is meant for everything. This reminder is already purifying through the emptiness. It will happen accordingly. This is the great compassion within the reminder itself. When the reminder of the boundlessness, it will be impossible to be limited. Therefore, it will proceed without traces as usual. This is the reminder of Mahasunyata Nibbana. It will be the purification of the emptiness. Everything is not to be grasped. For the emptiness or Nibbana, no grasping, even for the non-grasping itself. Therefore, when one uses the grasping mind, it becomes karmic difficulties, projecting towards grasping. Practicing for grasping within meditation, within mindfulness, this is just karma, holding on, fixation only. Therefore, the projection must purify itself, otherwise it will be a pitfall. For example, discarding on its own is also a projection, but it purifies itself. If discarding something that is a projection that doesn't purify itself, it's still discarding something. It's an act of discarding. If the discarding discards itself, this is the projection that purifies itself. It's not projecting for something. There is ending within itself. It is not to grasp something from the projection. For example, letting go is also a projection. To let go of something, it will not letting go of itself. The projection is stuck within itself. There is a karmic habit within itself. It will be fixated to let go. To act on letting go is the karmic difficulties. Therefore, the projection must purify itself. Then there will not be samsara or pitfall. It will not be indirect, ending within no time. Ending, the ending itself. Ending all about being direct or indirect or short. This is the reminder that purifies itself. It needs to be used constantly. It will help samsara to unwind altogether through the purification of the emptiness. One sentence must end for samsara. Otherwise, it will be samsara within itself. Any projection must end within itself. Otherwise, it will be samsara itself, which means that the projection or any terminologies that are used must purify themselves so that they will not become samsara within themselves. Listen. Ending within the ending itself. This is flawless. The same as the Arahants. Ending, the ending itself. Ending is on its own. The Arahants, they are not emptying out of anything. Emptiness doesn't mean emptiness. Wherever you go, the conclusion must conclude itself as usual. Discarding is on its own with everything. As usual, letting go is on its own. Wherever it is, the conclusion must be as such. Self-purification affects the purification for samsara as a whole, because this is not to grasp for the purification or for detachment. Otherwise, it will not be affecting samsara as a whole. It will be specific with just letting go. If letting go is an act of letting go on its own, it will end all about the act of letting go. It will be the great compassion for samsara as a whole, naturally. This era is the conclusion for ending all that kind of kamasthana meditation, vipassana meditation. We don't need to go around and around anymore like the past. Ending instantaneously. Don't create any seeds left in samsara. Disengage from itself. Don't create a seed from a sentence, not creating realm of existence from it. Putting down is on its own with everything. It's not an act of putting down. With everything, the emptiness doesn't grasp itself. With this, it will purify the grasping mind to be empty for the emptiness. solitude from the solitude itself. This is not to be solitude from anything. Otherwise, you're going to have to run away from samsara. Let's end the solitude itself. Ending the solitude itself means solitude from the solitude itself. Otherwise, there is someone who is taking solitude. There is a purification within this solitude from the solitude itself. Amidst samsara, amidst the beings, in the way that help purifying them, not in the way of escaping from them. Those who bless beings are not running away from the beings, except that the beings running away from them. With everything, non-attachment is on its own, without grasping itself. Cutting is on its own. This will be purification of the emptiness without limits for samsara. The point is, discarding is on its own. It's not an act of trying to discard anything or even oneself. Discarding is on its own. Otherwise, you're going to look for yourself somewhere where you are looking for oneself here or there within the body and mind. Actually, oneself is within the searching, within the looking for anything. Discarding must discard itself. Otherwise, there will be someone that is acting on discarding something. Listen well. This is ending within no time. Discarding, the discarding itself is discarding oneself from the act on discarding. Letting go of itself. Letting go of the letting go itself. That is letting go of the personhood who is acting on the letting go. The same as non-attachment, non-attached to the non-attachment itself. It's not about not attached to anything. That's not ending. The boundlessness will purify all forms of projection. Even freedom has frame. It's limited. Boundlessness has no trace. Freedom still has traces. Birds flying in the air, there are no traces, but there is its identity that is moving up there. The boundlessness has no traces of where it's coming from and where it's going. This is the essence of Mahasunyata, child. The boundlessness is not limited to certain extent at all. It's not limited with just being empty or not. It's breaking through all opinions and meanings, all tithi, bypassing all process of tithi, meanings and opinions. Therefore, it will purify all the limitations of the projection within this samsara, within this world. There are so many projections within looking, seeing and knowing, observing, considering, analyzing, even emptiness is projected on it. The boundlessness will purify all the projection. Therefore, use it to purify samsara onwards. It's not to be limited to certain extents. It's called boundlessness. It will purify all kinds of limitations. Therefore, don't be indirect. Even being direct is not it. As it is not what it is not. So don't be obsessed with just not this, not that. No is not even no itself. In this way, it will end. All this conclusion, any terminologies that has been used and turned into samsara, there must be a stop to use it, to use them. For example, amidst everything is not about something is in the middle of anything. Normally, we are amidst samsara anyway, but there is like an identity that is in the middle of something. Being amidst something without an identity or oneself amidst anything, then there will not be anything that is like unbearable. There will be no limits, unlimited tolerance that happens on its own. You don't listen directly from the Buddhas, that's why. The later generations don't listen directly from the front of the Buddhas. That's why they analyze, compare, interpret. Therefore, it's dragging a long way. But the first generation, right in front of the Buddhas, they don't analyze further or interpret further. They just stop to the essence of the non-attachment naturally. Those who have a lot of karmic habits, they will have to use thinking mind over and over a little bit more. It's not ending instantaneously. However, it needs to be used as a reminder. Each sentence from the Buddhas is perfect within itself. Listen and end accordingly, amidst everything without being someone in the middle of anything. It cannot be anything. To analyze further, there will be someone who is in the middle of anything, of all. To think further, to interpret further, it's going to be like someone is in the middle of all. This is all about deluded knowing or not knowing. Use the reminder that is not about anything in the middle of anything. Then it will proceed accordingly. This will not be distorted from the origin. The essence of the enlightenment of cutting deluded knowing has been completed. Therefore, each sentence ends within itself. There is no need to break through anything by interpretation, because that's going to be titi, opinions and meanings. Later generations cannot pass on the true essence. There must be the essence of Nibbana that pass on directly. It will be aligned with the essence. It will not point out towards the future. Later generations come from the path of karmic difficulties. Therefore, they like to point out for the future, leading towards the future. This is not the essence of the Buddhas. As this essence from the Buddhas is ending instantaneously, ending at the present, ending the projection, desire and expectations at the present. Because whenever we point out towards the front, the future, there is wishes for the future. That's not the way of the Buddhas. This is pointing that purifies itself. Anatta is not about in front or at present, not to be grasped even the presence of future. Unlike the later generations, they still grasping for the present. They didn't grasp the past or the future. This is the karmic difficulties. Even the Buddha's essence doesn't grasp the presence itself. The teaching from the later generation has been distorted. They grasp for the present. This is the seed, the causes. Listen, it will purify your heart and mind. This is direct essence from the Buddhas. Listen again. The times, the era has changed already. Later on, it will be ending instantaneously by listening. Don't add more from the reminders that are given. Don't explain further. Otherwise, the later generations also will interpret further. There will be additions. Amidst everything in the way that is not about anything amidst anything. If there is a path, the middle path, it will just be endless.